The vision I'm going to relate now is not known in the Gospels, but it does have a connection with characters in the Gospels, most specifically Joanna of Chusa and her husband Chusa himself, who's Herod's chief steward. So these are a rich couple, but they're childless, and they eventually become the parents of these two children upon whom this chapter that I'm going to read is centred. But that's talked about in the next chapter, which I'm not reading right now. The key point here is, though, Jesus' absolute uncompromising attitude towards those who will not be kind to others, and especially, of course, children, because we know in the Gospels his attitude towards children. So without further ado, I'll begin this chapter. It's number 297, and it's titled The Little Orphans, Mary and Matthias, and it's from volume 3 of the Poem of the Man God, the hardback edition, produced in 1986. It was given to Maria Valtorta on the 8th of October 1945. I see the lake of Merom again, in a dull wet day. Mud and clouds, silence and fog. The horizon disappears in the fog. The Hermon chains are buried under blankets of low clouds. But from the place where I am, a high tableland near the little lake, which is grey and yellowish because of the mud of 1,000 swollen little streams, and because of the November overcast sky, one has a good view of this little sheet of water fed by the high Jordan, which flows out of it to feed the larger lake of Gennesaret. It is getting dark, and the evening is becoming more and more gloomy and wet, while Jesus walks along the road which crosses the Jordan after Lake Merom, and he then takes a lane towards a house. And in parentheses next, we have Jesus says, "You will put here the vision of the little orphans Matthias and Mary, which you saw on August the 20th, 1944. And so the introductory part, which was October 1945, that was just that, but the main vision now is the one that was given to her in August 20th, 1944. And I mention this partly to show you that we don't have a series of visions here which start with A and work their way up to Z, and Jesus gives her each vision one after the other in chronological sequence. Far from it. These visions are given out of order very, very often. And then Jesus instructs her where to put them. Because once she's had a load of visions out of order, she's not going to know which goes where, what the correct sequence is. And in fact, this testifies to the probable supernatural nature of this work, because human authors would have great difficulty in producing their work this way. They need to have a plan of how their novel is going to be produced and who's going to do what and when. And however here, it's completely different. And yet when it's all tied together, it's seamless. There are no contradictions. Nothing seems out of the correct chronology. I remember when reading Bleak House by Charles Dickens, some of the commentary on that was that he didn't quite get his sequence right in certain points, so long ago since I read it now. Easily done in a big novel. And if it's done by a great man like that, you'd expect Maria Valtorta to make a mess of things, because Bleak House is quite a modest work, very modest work in its extent compared to the hugeness of the Poem of the Man God. But there we are. Miracles abound in this work. Another sweet vision of Jesus and two children. I say so because I see that Jesus, while passing along a path between fields which must have been sown recently, because the soil is still soft and dark, as it looks just after being sown, stops to caress two children, a little boy, not more than 4 years old, and a little girl, about 8 or 9. They must be very poor children, because they are wearing poor faded garments, which are also torn, and their faces are sad and thin. Jesus does not ask any questions. He only gazes at them while he caresses them. He then hastens towards a house at the end of the path. It is a country house, well built, with an outside staircase leading from the ground up to a terrace, on which there is a vine pergola, now bare of grapes and leaves. Only an odd yellow leaf hangs swinging in the damp wind of a bad autumn day. Some doves are cooing on the parapet of the house, waiting for the rain which the overcast sky is promising. Jesus, followed by his apostles, pushes the little rustic gate of the low rubble wall surrounding the house, and enters the yard, which we would rather call a threshing floor, where there is a well and a stone oven in a corner. I suppose that is what the little closet is, the walls of which are black with smoke, which is coming out even now, and is blown towards the ground by the wind. Hearing the sound of footsteps, a woman looks out of the closet, and when she sees Jesus, she greets him joyfully and runs to inform the people of the house.